She was once the face of hope, a brave teenager on television who broke barriers and inspired millions. The cameras loved her, the media celebrated her, and her smile seemed to represent the dawn of something new. Jazz Jennings was not just another young girl on reality TV. She was a symbol, a voice for a cause, a pioneer who dared to step into the spotlight when few others would. Her journey, broadcast to the world through her show I Am Jazz, captivated people everywhere. She spoke openly about being transgender from a young age, educating the public, answering questions and exuding confidence that seemed far beyond her years. To many, she represented courage, acceptance, and possibility. But what happened after the cameras dimmed? What happened when the applause faded and the weight of reality settled in? The answer is not what most expected. Jazz's story, once celebrated as an inspiring tale of triumph, has transformed into something far more complicated, a narrative filled with struggles, setbacks, and questions that society is only beginning to confront. From an early age, Jazz Jennings became a household name. Her interviews on national television made her one of the youngest public advocates for transgender rights. She seemed radiant, cheerful, and endlessly positive, as if nothing could shake her. Doctors praised her bravery. The press placed her on magazine covers, and she was invited to conferences and events as a representative of a new generation unafraid to live authentically. Yet beneath the bright lights and accolades, an entirely different battle was unfolding. Jazz's path was never as smooth as it appeared. Her story, often painted in bright celebratory tones, contained shadows that were rarely spoken about. Those shadows became impossible to ignore when she reached a major milestone in 2018, her long-awaited gender confirmation surgery. For Jazz, this procedure was supposed to be the final step, the moment she had envisioned since childhood. The transgender community celebrated her as a trailblazer, and supporters called it a victory for progress. But reality proved harsher than the headlines. Because Jazz had been on puberty blockers from a very young age, her body had not developed enough tissue for surgeons to construct a vaginal canal in the usual way. Her doctors had to devise an alternative strategy, using skin from her stomach to complete the surgery. It was an intricate operation filled with risks, and the aftermath was grueling. Complications arose quickly, swelling, pain, and difficulties with healing that no one had anticipated. What was meant to be an ending became the beginning of a new chapter of suffering. Multiple surgeries followed, each one attempting to repair the complications from the last. Each time Jazz's body weakened, and each time her spirit seemed to dim. Instead of triumph, she found herself locked in a cycle of procedures, recoveries, and setbacks. The emotional toll was immense. On television, Jazz had always been presented as vibrant and confident. But behind the camera, during quieter moments, her struggle became clear. She admitted to feeling different, numb, and at times empty. Something inside her had shifted, and no amount of smiles for the cameras could hide it anymore. Her once boundless optimism was replaced with exhaustion. She confessed to feelings of depression and anxiety, feelings that grew heavier with every operation and every reminder that life was not unfolding the way she had imagined. Fame had placed her in a role that was both empowering and suffocating. She was not only expected to live her truth, but to embody it flawlessly, to carry the expectations of a movement without showing weakness. That pressure became too much to bear. As she tried to recover, food became her escape. Jazz began binge-eating, consuming thousands of calories in a single sitting. Pizzas, donuts, whatever might numb the ache inside. She admitted that it wasn't hunger driving her, but pain. The more she ate, the worse she felt, yet she could not stop. Her weight climbed by more than 100 pounds, changing her appearance drastically and adding another layer of difficulty to her already heavy burden. Her once radiant energy gave way to quiet fatigue. Even simple daily tasks like brushing her teeth or attending therapy sessions felt overwhelming. The girl who had once inspired millions now struggled to find the strength to get out of bed. Her mother, Jeanette, tried desperately to support her, but even the strongest love could not always reach the depths of Jazz's despair. One emotional scene captured this raw reality. Jeanette, her voice breaking, begged her daughter to fight for herself again, while Jazz sat silent, consumed by pain she could not put into words. It was a striking contrast to the bold, confident teenager audiences had admired for years. Meanwhile, the public was beginning to notice. Jazz, who once shared her life openly online and appeared frequently at events, began withdrawing. Her social media presence declined. Her public appearances grew rare, and when she did re-emerge, people saw a very different young woman. Her face was softer, her body heavier, her voice quieter. There was a sadness in her eyes that no amount of editing or media polish could conceal. The flawless image that had once inspired admiration now revealed cracks, and those cracks told a story that no one had prepared for. For the first time, people were forced to confront not just the triumphs of early transition, but the complications and consequences as well. Then came another pivotal moment: her acceptance into Harvard University, a dream many strive for. Yet instead of diving straight into this new chapter, Jazz announced she would postpone her enrollment. She needed time to heal, she said. For the world, this was shocking. Jazz had always been portrayed as unstoppable, someone who pushed forward no matter the odds. Now, for the first time, she admitted that she wasn't doing well. The myth of invincibility shattered, and in its place emerged a more complicated truth: that transition did not fix everything, that fame could not shield her from inner struggles, and that even the bravest pioneers are still human, still vulnerable, still searching for peace. As the years passed, Jazz's story began to shift from a narrative of hope to one of caution. Her experiences raised difficult questions that few had dared to voice before. Was she too young to make decisions with such permanent consequences? Did the doctors and adults in her life prioritize her well-being, or were they too eager to showcase a success story? Was the media more interested in a symbol than in a child? These questions did not deny her identity, but instead pointed to the complexities of growing up in the spotlight while navigating deeply personal and irreversible medical choices. Some who once championed early transitioning began to hesitate, wondering if children as young as 5 or 11 could truly understand the long-term implications. Others pointed out that the system seemed to emphasize affirmation without leaving space for doubt, hesitation, or exploration, a path that could trap vulnerable children into decisions they were not ready for. The burden of being a symbol weighed heavily on Jazz. Since childhood, she had been more than just a person. She had been a movement, an example, a cause. Experts studied her life. Schools used her story as a lesson in acceptance, and activists held her up as proof that transitioning early could lead to happiness. But life is never that simple. Behind the headlines, Jazz wrestled with emptiness, uncertainty, and a desire to simply exist without the weight of everyone's expectations. She confessed openly in one unforgettable moment that she had never felt sexual attraction and was unsure if she ever would. The vulnerability of that admission broke through the polished narrative, showing the world a young woman unsure not only of what lay ahead, but of herself. It was raw, it was human, and it was impossible to ignore. Her family, once portrayed as the picture of unity and support, also began to show signs of strain. Jeanette, once seen as fiercely protective, was increasingly criticized as controlling, a stage mom whose grip on her daughter's journey may have pushed her further than she was ready to go. Her father, Greg, once the calming balance, grew quieter and more distant. Her siblings, once lively on screen, appeared subdued. The family that had been celebrated as a model of love and acceptance was suddenly revealed as fragile, struggling under the relentless pressure of the public gaze. The cracks were not just in Jazz's story, but in the Jennings family itself. And yet, despite all the hardship, Jazz remains. Her story is not one of defeat, but of endurance. In recent years, she has stepped back from the spotlight, sharing fewer but more personal updates with her followers. She speaks of her mental health, her efforts to lose weight, her quiet search for peace. Her posts no longer carry the polished shine of someone trying to represent an entire community. Instead, they reflect the journey of an individual, gentler, slower, more honest. She is no longer trying to be perfect. She is simply trying to be herself. This evolution is perhaps the most powerful part of her story. It strips away the illusion of perfection and reminds us that behind every headline, every magazine cover, every speech, there is a human being. Jazz Jennings was celebrated for her bravery, but her real courage may lie not in what she represented for others, but in admitting that she is struggling, in choosing to step back when the world wanted her to keep pushing forward, in prioritizing healing over appearances. Her life is no longer just about being a trailblazer or a symbol. It is about the universal struggle to find contentment, to live authentically, to survive when life does not go as planned. Her journey now stands as both inspiration and caution. It inspires because she continues to fight, despite the setbacks. It cautions because it reveals the risks of pushing children into life-altering paths before they have fully grown. It shows the danger of turning individuals into symbols, of demanding perfection from those who are still discovering who they are. Jazz's struggles expose the complexities of transition, the consequences of fame, and the fragility of growing up under the weight of societal expectations. And yet through it all she remains, still standing, still moving forward, still trying to find peace in her own way. Perhaps that is where her true story lies. Not in the polished version the media first gave us, not in the tragic framing that critics now emphasize, but in the messy, complicated middle, the part where she admits she doesn't have it all figured out, where she falls, gets up, and tries again. Jazz Jennings is no longer just the smiling teenager who inspired millions. She is a young woman carrying scars inside and out, learning what it means to live for herself, not for the cameras, not for the cause, not for the expectations of others. In that honesty lies a story far more real, far more human, and perhaps far more important than the one we thought we knew.